Hey, what's up everybody, Chad here, and today we're starting House and Powers of X. Now this story, there's 6 issues in like House of X and Powers of X, so I'm gonna like divide them up, like do issue 1, issue 1, issue 2, issue 2. I'm gonna divide them up like that, so it'll end up being 6 videos in all when we get done with this specific story itself, right? So we pick up on Krakoa. We essentially have the X-Men, you know, Colossus, Storm, all these different X-Men. They're going to these different places and they're planting these flowers. Now these flowers, they're pretty interesting with how they work, right? So there's like 6 different uses for each of these flowers. There's 3 human uses for them and 3 mutant uses for them. So with humans, they work like this, right? There's one flower that gives an extended life for humans in the span of 5 years. There's another flower that gives them like essentially super, like they turn them into like super people, like superhuman. It's a super drug, right? Like that's essentially just what it is. And there's another flower that cures all the diseases in the mind of humans, right? So you could like pop this pill and just, you know, or pop this flower and just, you know, be completely mentally sane, right? So the first way these flowers can be used are they could be planted to make a portal, right? Gateways. So you could plant one on Krakoa and have a gateway there, and plant another one in like China or something, and you can get instantly from Krakoa to China or China to Krakoa just by passing through these gateways. But the only people who are allowed to use them really by way of Krakoa are mutants, because that's the only people that he's letting go through them at any point in time. Other people can go through them, maybe, if they're allowed to, but by and large, it's mostly just mutants that are allowed to go through them. So the second use for these flowers is it makes a habitat, right? So it makes this biome, so you can plant this flower like anywhere, and Krakoa would know that it's there, right? Like he'll be able to like feel, hear, you know, like he'll know what's going on there even if it's not on the island itself. It creates like this tiny like Krakoa habitat, right? The third use is it makes another habitat, but this one, it could be planted on Krakoa and he would not even know that it's there, right? Like he won't be able to feel what's going on in there. He'll actually have to be there himself to actually know what's going on in this habitat, right? Which we'll see where it gets planted and how it's used, right? Because it's kind of interesting the way that they use it, right? So what Magneto is doing is he's meeting up with all these different leaders, right? Like he's meeting up with like the leaders in China, America, all these different places, right? England. They're all coming together to Magneto, and he's actually trying to convince them of something. What Magneto is trying to have happen, he's trying to have them establish Krakoa as its own nation, right? Like they're trying to have Krakoa be seen as its own sovereign, you know, country, right? Like out there by itself, people that can like, you know, engage in treaties and, you know, all those different things, right? Like they want to govern themselves. That's the way that they want this to work out, right? They're going through and they're talking to Magneto and Sophia, the Stepford Cuckoos, one of the clones of Emma Frost. And they're like asking all these different questions, right? Like they're going through all these portals, you know, the gateways, and they're going through all the different biomes, right? They're not on the island itself. They're not on Krakoa, and we'll see like what the reasoning behind Magneto is for not taking them on the island itself. But they're asking them all these different questions, right? Like they're trying to figure out what's going on here, right? So you know, you have these gateways, right? And they're going to these different places. What happens if one day y'all wake up and y'all want to just, you know, invade a place, right? Like y'all could just get there instantly from Krakoa to wherever you want to try and invade, in which they don't see that as fair, right? Like they're thinking about the militaristic aspect of it, right? In Magneto, he gives a great answer, right? What he says is, we've never conquered a people, we've never stolen their land, we've never made slaves of the vanquished or the people that we've taken over. We haven't done that, right? Like that's what y'all do, okay? We just want to sit here by ourselves and do our thing. Whatever y'all do out there in the world, okay, sure, go ahead, we don't care, but leave us alone, right? Like it's that kind of thing, right? Like that's how Magneto is seeing it, right? So when are we going to Krakoa, right? Like we need to get a better feel of, you know, what's going on here, what y'all are doing, how y'all are trying to establish this place. Like what is going on here, right? Like for all we know, y'all could be making like an entire country of super soldiers, right? Like all these different mutants with all these different wild extreme powers. Y'all could be just doing that, right? Like, and we don't even know. Yeah, we're not gonna go there, okay? That's what Magneto says. He says we're not going there, okay? Like y'all are man, okay? Y'all aren't allowed there, okay? Like that place is for mutants only. No man shall step foot in Krakoa. Only we can go through these gates to get there. Only we can come out, okay? Like if we don't want y'all to be there, y'all aren't gonna be there, okay? Like we're the next step in evolution here. We're not gonna let y'all just, you know, like just keep taking over the planet. Like we're not just gonna let y'all just keep bullying us around, okay? Like we're gonna take what we want, which is just a small piece, and we'll give y'all the rest of it, okay? We don't need all of it. We just want to go off on our own and do our thing. Right? That happening, we skip over to Mystique and Sabretooth, right? And what Mystique was, she was sent out to try and go and get this information that's needed, right? Sabretooth, he just went out just to go and, you know, like mess some stuff up, right? Like he went out and killed a bunch of people. He was just out there just doing his He was just out there doing whatever Sabretooth does, right? So we find out that they're actually getting attacked by the Fantastic Four, right? Like they're in New York, they're trying to go and get this information, and what we find out is this information belonged to Tony Stark and Reed Richards. We'll find out what this information is because it's really important to what's going to happen in a bit. But they end up stopping Sabretooth when he's trying to leave, right? Like he's trying to jump through this portal, and they end up, and Susan Storm uses her force field and actually stops him from leaving, right? So with him being captured, Cyclops actually shows up. He comes out of this portal, and what he's trying to do is he's trying to take Sabretooth back. You know, he comes out, you know, he greets Ben Graham, all the Fantastic Four, you know, talking to them, and he's trying to take Sabretooth back to Krakoa so they can deal with him on their land, because if they're gonna establish themselves as the government, they're gonna have to, you know, put the boot down, right? Like they're gonna have to actually do what you know most nations would do, right? So he's gonna try and come and get Sabretooth, but they actually leave him there when Reed starts to like resist a little bit. You know, he's like, no, he came here, killed a bunch of people, y'all aren't taking him, okay? We're gonna deal with him here. So Cyclops, with his hands tied, you know, he backs off, right? You know, he just goes and he leaves. With that happening, we actually go back to Magneto and Sophie, right? So they're talking to these leaders, and what they're doing is, you know, after this whole, you know, spiel and, you know, showing off what's going on in Krakoa, or get the little biomes in Krakoa, give them like the little rundown, they're talking to these leaders, right? And what Magneto says is, what have we learned here, right? And when they start trying to answer, he's like, no, I'm not talking to y'all, okay? Like, I don't want to know what y'all say, I want to know what y'all think. So I'm talking to Sophie, okay? So Sophie, she goes through and she starts reading all their minds, right? Like she's giving Magneto the whole rundown, what everyone's thinking, and for the most part, everyone is actually on board with Krakoa until one of these guys, he has a gun, right? So he has a gun, and Magneto, you know, he just takes this guy's gun, right? Like literally just seizes him, okay? What he says is, you know, I brought that just for my protection, right? Like I wasn't going to use it. I'm just, you know, I'm just trying to make sure I'm safe, right? And what Magneto says is, of course, that's how it always starts. And what he says is, things are different now, okay? It's good that y'all are here because y'all can go back and tell your, you know, your cohorts what I'm about to say. There's no negotiating what's going on here, okay? I'm telling y'all this so that y'all know what's gonna happen, okay? I'm not here to ask y'all to cede Krakoa as its own nation. We are its own nation, okay? I'm not here to make y'all agree with me, okay? I'm just here to let y'all know. You humans, you love your symbolism as much as you love your religion, and I needed you to understand you have new gods now, okay? We're the ones who run the show. Y'all aren't the ones who do that anymore, okay? We're the next step from what y'all are. So from there, we switch to Xavier. And what Charles Xavier is doing is he's at this festival, and this lady comes up, and, you know, she's like talking to him. And eventually she ends up calling him by his real name, and he's like, I mean, I don't think I told you my name. Like, do we know each other? And what this lady says is, yes, we do, like quite a ways, right? So this lady is actually Moira McTaggart. If you don't know who that is, I actually have a video with her in it. Well, no, she's not in it actually, now that I think about it. She was one of the reasons why Days of Future Past kicked off, right? Like she died, Charles Xavier died, and there was a senator that was killed, and that essentially started the whole thing. And he had to go back in time to keep that from happening. She was the one of the people that was killed to kick all that off, right? Like Days of Future Past with the Sentinels and all that stuff. That's who this is, though. So he ends up reading her mind, and, you know, like, we don't get an answer for what he sees yet, but he looks pretty surprised. So whatever he's seeing is like, you know, it might be groundbreaking. So we go back to Mystique, and she meets up with Magneto, right? And she, with Magneto actually, you know, asking her if she got what she was supposed to be getting, she said yes, right? Like she gets this little chip, and Charles Xavier actually shows up, and he grabs the chip from her, right? Like he takes the chip, does what he needs to do, and we find out Mystique, she isn't just doing this just for, you know, just to help out the country, right? Like she's not doing it for Krakoa, right? She made a deal with these two guys. We're gonna find out what that deal is in a bit. Not this video, but probably like later on. Actually, no, that's a while from now. That's a good bit from now. We'll find out what that is eventually, right? We end up skipping to the future. And what's going on is there's like these sentinels coming, right? And it looks a very Days of Future Past-esque in the way that it's drawn, because you have these sentinels, you know, coming down on these mutants and stuff. And this one mutant with the black brain, we're gonna figure out who she is and where she came from, and, you know, like why she looks the way that she does in a bit. And there's these two mutants just sitting back, right? You know, you have this one girl. Her name is Rasputin. She's like super powerful. This Rasputin girl, she's OP if I've ever seen it. Okay, like she is crazy powerful. So you have the Rasputin, and you have this priest. So what they're trying to do is, well, the priest, he's just sitting there because, you know, he's a little wuss. Rasputin, she goes out, and she's actually trying to keep them from taking Silva, right? The black brain mutant. Her name is Silva. They're trying to keep her from getting taken, right? Because if she gets taken, one thing that we'll find out is all of the information that she has on these mutants, it'll go towards the people who are trying to kill all of them, right? Like the Sentinels and all that stuff. And we'll find out who the main big guy is in a bit, because yeah, that's gonna be crazy. So she's going out, and, you know, she's fighting off all these Sentinels, these robots, all these different people, right? Like all these different forces. She's fighting all those things off, right? And eventually Silva gets taken, and this is where we find out what Rasputin is. What Rasputin is a chimera, which that means is she's a mixture of different mutants, right? Like she has like a bunch of different mutants powers, right? Like she has like the powers of Quentin Quire, so she has telepathy, Mikhail Rasputin, so she can like control energy or whatever that guy did. Honestly, I don't have a clue as to his specific power set, because he's powerful, but like there's so much stuff that he can do, so it's kind of like what is his main power even, honestly. So the powers of Bane, Pride, Laura Kinney, so she has like intangibility, she can heal, you know, different stuff like that. And this is where we switch to the main baddie, right? Nimrod. So Nimrod, back in the days, he was a tank. Like it was so, this dude is so powerful, it's ridiculous how powerful he is. At one point during this story, he's gonna kill Apocalypse. So it's that is the kind of power that this guy has, because Apocalypse is not easy to take out whatsoever. That dude is crazy. So when she gets here, you know, they're essentially trying to figure out what to do with her, right? Because she's not telling what they need to know, but they need the information, right? Like they don't mind, you know, killing this woman and actually taking the information that they need, but the way that they have to do it is kind of brutal, honestly. So Nimrod, he just keeps saying, you know, I'm sorry for what we did, I'm sorry for what we have to do, you know, stuff like that. And they throw her in what's called a bath, right? So this bath, she's essentially like covered in this liquid, you know, she's put in this huge tank. And what's going to happen is like nanites are going to essentially eat her mind from alive and steal all the information from that they have, right? Leaving her essentially a husk. Like she's just a mindless husk, right? Like she doesn't have any real brain function in terms of, you know, moving or, you know, anything like that. She's just stuck there. So what we find out is she's from what's called a kennel. And if you knew back in Days of Future Past, the way that they were hunting a lot of those mutants down, they would use something called a hound. What a hound was a mutant that was bred to chase down other mutants, right? Like they were conditioned from birth or from the time that they were made into essentially hunting down humans, right? Like they didn't have any real, you know, emotional tether or nothing like that. They were just, you know, mindless, essentially just mindless drones. Like yeah, like that's a good way to explain them. So that's pretty much what she is. But the way that it worked out is that they weren't as effective as you know, going in with duplicity and stuff like that. So they started making more hounds, and essentially something called the kennel, and they were making them so that they would be like, you know, going in with the duplicity, going into like betraying people and stuff like that. But what ended up happening most of the time is they would betray the machines and actually want to stay with the human, the mutants, because that's you know, that's what they were built in. They were built in duplicities. So they would end up, you know, following their programming sake, right, or their conditioning sake. So we find out where Rasputin and this priest went, right? They go back to their home base, back to Krakoa. It's been alive this whole time, and they're meeting up with Wolverine, Magneto, and Krakoa itself. So there's like some, it's kind of weird how this is drawn, because this is like 100 years into the future. Like it's kind of crazy. No, this is 1,000 years into the future. No, this is 100 years into the future, right? So what we find out is there's about 10,000 mutants, if that are still alive in the universe, right? So those 10,000 mutants, most of them live with the Shi'ar, right? Like they're in Shi'ar space. That's where they reside at, right? So we skip ahead 1,000 years into the future, right? There's this evolved human, right? Like this blue person, it's an evolved human. We don't know who it is exactly, but it's talking with Nimrod. And what Nimrod is this little like floating thing. He ended up evolving just like humans did. And we find out after the man-machine mutant war, I think it seems like the mutants ended up winning because Nimrod actually gave them an advantage somehow. And we find out that the small amount of humans that are left are kept in a preserve, right? Like the same way you would go to a zoo and see, like, you know, like zebras in a pit, or, you know, like something like that, or lions in a cage. They're kept like that, right? Like they're kept as like little mementos, right? Like the little mementos of what used to be. That's essentially how that works out. So we're gonna end this video right here. If you are new to the channel, subscribe, leave a like if you enjoyed this story, and I will see y'all in the next one.